Well, all right now. Object number one, which you probably ascertained is made of obsidian. The Costanoan Indians would trade with the Miwok Indians on the other side of the Sierra Mountains east of Yosemite for this precious and valuable volcanic glass-like stone to make, in this case, spearheads. This is certainly symbolic of that culture, and it's also indicative of the greater concept of manifest destiny. As the white man moved west, Indians got either kill them, change them, or force them onto reservations, right? Number two, what we have here is a recording device. Thomas Edison invented the first record, a recording in this case of waltz music. Music would be encoded onto this disc, and the little groovy, would be played on a phonograph. In later times, magnetic tape allowed for such things as audio tape, hence the ones that were used in Watergate and Nixon. The 8-track tape was an innovation where 8 tracks of stereo could be all set onto one for the 8-track player and other recording devices. Of course, MP3s are kind of the recording medium, digital medium, as opposed to analog medium of choice. Kind of a big deal. Recorded information preserved for all time and posterity. The Roaring Twenties, the 1920s, were a time of great cultural change. Socially, girls became a little more able to meet up with college-bound boys. He's leaving town to go to college, play tennis, play the ukulele, take the milk with him, and his travel bag. Automobile was a great new innovation of the 1920s. Technological innovation, traffic jams even back then in the Roaring Twenties. And of course, the automobile combined sort of the new social styles and opportunities for young folks. Cars were also dubbed and nicknamed houses of prostitution on wheels. And women were vamping it up and doing terrible things like wearing makeup, smoking cigarettes, using lipstick, things that only whores did. And of course, that college party scene began way back then. Yes, we are collegiate. Another new innovation of the time period, the radio. Suddenly, mass media came into a new dimension where no longer did you need mere newspapers to disperse the word, and you could do so instantaneously across mass distances to mass audiences, which would help you to mass market through mass advertising. In this case, the luxury of the 1920s with this model Rolls-Royce. The Roaring Twenties were a time of wealth. Motion pictures also became a new technological innovation with both mainly social implications for entertainment. Rudolph Valentino was the big heartthrob of the day. The newspaper comics, Gloria, the American Girl from 1926, is in showbiz, and no self-respecting girl would have done that 10 or 15 years earlier. But Gloria gets the call to go down to the movie set. She dolls up, vamps it up for befitting a lady of the screen, and then she gets her brand new costume. Telling us, peeking out from the dressing room door, she can't appear in that scanty little thing because she forgot her earrings. Radical social changes with women's femininity, the bearing of backs and arms, all considered, shall we say, slutty and whorish in just the previous decade. And then one of the other great technological innovations of the 20s was the aeroplane. Very nice, very nice. This next set depicts the Industrial Revolution and two very contrasting aspects of America's rise to international prominence and great industry. These are, this table is shaped in this is in the shape of a railroad tie, a railroad track with all of the high muckamuck corporate members of the first $1 billion U.S. corporation known as United States Steel. The very, very wealthy during the Industrial Revolution compared to these boys, child labor, working in the coal mines, sorting slate out of the coal. Of course, Industrial Revolution was largely powered by coal and petroleum-based products and oil. Child labor in sweatshops, garment shops, typically in the big cities, especially New York's garment district. Boys working in textile mills, again to make fabric, running machines and pulleys, injuries. Boys actually working in the coal mines. No education, miserable working conditions, dangerous, and nice brutal guys like him to beat you with a cane. Meanwhile, United States Steel and their magnates, including J.P. Morgan, made massive fortunes. The distribution of wealth during the Industrial Revolution was that 10% of the population had 90% of the wealth, and 90% of the population, these kids and their parents, had 10% of the wealth. Things were a little inequitable. Moving along to another time in American history's economic development was what was called the Great Depression. The Great Depression was caused by a number of factors we'll learn later in this course, but unemployment skyrocketed to as much as 25%. People that used to have jobs in the stock market or good paying jobs in offices and so forth were forced to try to sell apples because they were too proud to beg. 5 cents would buy an apple as more of a donation. Migrant workers all over the country living in ramshackle cardboard houses. A shortage of buyers for basic products like milk caused a lot of farmers to just dump perfectly good milk in order to try to reduce supply in the face of reduced demand and maybe raise prices. Poor migrant farm workers. Mother Nature decided during the Great Depression to make things worse by going into a 7-year drought in the Dust Bowl panhandle of Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, forcing laborers, farm workers to try to migrate to California, where they would only find wrath when they went to the California fields to try to pick in an economy where there were no jobs. And these children's pictures kind of tell that story in sad and sordid detail. Number 6 is going to bring us to the bikini bomb tests. So, arms race, nuclear proliferation, the Cold War, who's going to have the most and the biggest bombs, and we flex our nuclear muscle in contrast to that of the Soviet Union to try to A, make ourselves more secure, and B, intimidate the enemy when at that point in time only 2 nations had atomic weapons. Nuclear proliferation in the Cold War was a much smaller problem than it is today. Number 7, Vietnam War. Contrasting images here. One of our motivations for getting in: to preserve freedom and democracy around the world and save Vietnam from communism while American soldiers served a humanitarian purpose. Meanwhile, the price tag is depicted by the names inscribed on the Vietnam Memorial Wall. And of course, this helmet had a little chance to visit the Vietnam War. Part of Truman's policy of containment. Stop the spread of red. Moving on to 9/11. We will be studying that in great detail. That is our now defunct enemy. A great day of shock and outrage, leading to America to go to war in Afghanistan, not Iraq. Afghanistan, and the cost of the war in Afghanistan skyrocketing into $70 billion a year or more in 2010 alone, and support for the war in Afghanistan diminishing over time. Again, not Iraq. This concludes this first segment.